Hi, I'm Aaron. Welcome to the channel. Just before we get started, wanted to give a minor spoiler warning. Any discussions that we have are speculative, but based on details which may be spoilers depending on where you are in your One Piece voyage. Now, just to note, any theory that I give is not necessarily true, and I will never claim they will happen with 100% certainty. I am also not calling my theories the best choice that Oda could make. Speculation is fun, disagreements are okay. I will not be disappointed if a theory of mine does not pan out. But as for the main topic, I wanted to talk a little bit about how the Rocks pirates are going to fall apart at God Valley. I want to cover this today as Oda may just give us the answers in the next chapter or two of the flashback, so this is possibly the last chance that I will get to make a video like this and accurately label it a theory video. Now, we know the broad strokes of what happened. Ochaku killed Don Marlin, turned over Shaki and betrayed Rocks, then Roger and Garp joined forces and defeated Rocks in some sort of epic final battle at God Valley. The end, right? But is this all that Oda is setting up for God Valley? If you watched my first video, you will have heard my theory about a hidden traitor amongst the Rocks pirates. Go check that out if you haven't. Seriously, it's got like 7 views right now, which is more than I thought it would, but I'd be thrilled if it got to 10. Aside from the possible hidden traitor / Ochaku co-conspirator, what I really want to speak about in this video are objectives. Specifically, if you look back at chapter 1159, there appear to be 4 emergent classes of objectives amongst different members of the Rocks pirates. First, we have Rocks' personal objective, which is to save his family. Second, we have the objectives of characters like Big Mom and Kaido, which is obtaining the prize Devil Fruits. Third, we have the objective of rescuing Shaki, which seems to be an objective that is more emphasized, more prioritized by characters such as Shiki. And finally, we have a catch-all category that I just call other objectives, and we'll get to that in a little bit. What's interesting about these objective categories is how they begin to fracture the crew. Let's start with Rocks. Again, he wants to save his family, a goal that he is not shown to share with a single member of his crew. Making matters worse, when speaking with Harold, he says the following: "As long as my wife and kid escape, I don't care about the rest." Rocks, the captain, does not share his objective with anyone and does not care about anyone else's objective. And the way he phrases his concern, again, "as long as my wife and kid escape, I don't care about the rest," not only sounds like a man only thinking of himself and what he needs, what he wants, but also like a man willing to sacrifice the goals and potentially lives of his crewmates to achieve his objective. And we'll get back to that in a little bit, but keep that in mind. Second, again, moving from Rocks, we have Big Mom, Kaido, and Captain John. Now, I know I didn't mention Captain John a minute ago, but I do think he might potentially belong in this category. As we know, Big Mom and Kaido are both concerned with obtaining the Devil Fruit prizes up for grabs during the tournament. In chapter 1096, going back a little bit, upon landing on God Valley, Captain John specifically mentions a treasure which may very well be the same treasure that Buggy later pursues post-Marineford. You know, the one where he wanted the armband that Luffy had on during Impel Down, that treasure. That is primed to come back at some point in the series, and I'd be interested to see if it might be a Devil Fruit. We also know that Rocks said that 2 Devil Fruits were key to his plan, and there are prize Devil Fruits on this island. I think it's very possible that John absconds from God Valley with a Devil Fruit, if he doesn't die on God Valley directly. The third goal, as I mentioned before, is the rescue of Shaki, and it seems to be the primary objective and motivating factor for members like Shiki. Looking back at 1159, you can see the heart eyes in Shiki, in a panel with Shiki when he is discussing the possibility that she survived, or the leak that she survived, as said by Stussy. We can also see John, Ganzui, Stussy, and perhaps Gloriosa in the same panel as Shiki when he hears the news, but only Shiki and Gloriosa have hearts in reaction to the news of Shaki's survival. Now, on the subject of Gloriosa and potentially having hearts at the news of Shaki's survival, it is possible that this undermines the theory that I posted in my last video that Gloriosa was a conspirator or co-conspirator with Ochaku. Because why would she have hearts in her eyes at the news if she had helped abduct Shaki. However, I think this panel could be interpreted in a bunch of different ways at this point in time. As I posited in the last video, I think it's very possible that Gloriosa feels remorseful for her role in turning over Shaki to the government, and as a result, the fact that Shaki is now known to be alive and someone that they can rescue would allow her to be happy about that news. I'd also point out that Gloriosa has never been shown to be enamored with or in love with Shaki. Jealous? Yeah, probably. So it really doesn't make sense for Gloriosa to have the hearts going up about Shaki in a love sense, because that's never been their relationship or her character. Finally, we have what I call other objectives. At this point, we're going to talk about a few characters, the first of which is Ochaku, because he's the obvious one, right? He partook in abducting Shaki for profit. You can see him flipping through money. Immediately after the news broke, he's gloating. His goals at God Valley are likely finding a way to keep that betrayal secret while coming out of God Valley on whatever the winning side ends up being. And we know that he eventually takes charge of Hachinosu, so he seems to do very well for himself at some point in the near future. Another character to keep an eye on is, again, Gloriosa. In Chapter 1096, when the Rocks pirates make landfall, we see Gloriosa and Stussy arguing with one another, and Stussy's response to Gloriosa seems to be about Gloriosa's feelings for Roger. Later on the same page, Gloriosa says something to the effect of, "Today's the day we settle this." Now, that's translation dependent. Depending on which source you're reading from, you might have a slightly different line. But that's what I read. "Today is the day we settle this." That could be a very generic line referencing her desire to rescue Shaki, but does that really fit? Who are they settling things with? That seems like a very personal you and I sort of statement. So I think it could honestly refer to a one-sided rivalry that Gloriosa feels she has with Shaki over Roger's affections. She knows that information was leaked, so she could speculate very strongly that Roger is also going to show up. So she and Shaki are on an island. She's vying for Roger's affections, and this might be the last chance. This might be the opportunity for her to finally put it out there and overcome her rival in love. Just a theory. Who knows whether that has any validity or not, but I want to put it out there. The last crewmate that I want you to really take a look at is honestly Whitebeard, who we see arguing with Rocks about following orders in Chapter 1096. On the first page of Chapter 1159, we see a very angry Rocks reacting to news of Shaki's kidnapping, followed by a panel of a surprised Whitebeard. But is that really what's happening here? Are they both reacting to the news, or is Rocks' exclamation of, "What did you say?" directed specifically at Whitebeard, which might explain his confusion in the very next panel? Is this indicative of an argument between them which leads to a break in the chain of command? Just something to think about, because again, we know the Rocks pirates don't work well together, and something happens which falls apart at God Valley. So we need to look for cracks in the armor, for whatever the signs are that things are about to fall apart. As I said earlier, the crew seems to have a variety of objectives and no clear unifying cause going into God Valley. As readers, Oda has repeatedly emphasized the Rocks pirates collapsed because they couldn't work together, and it seems that Oda is establishing a number of conflicting goals for the Rocks pirates and a willingness amongst several members to stab each other in the back for personal gain. The tragedy, therefore, I think at least, is how keenly aware of this Rocks seems to be, and how unable he is to change it. He assembled his crew through Davy-back fights, not by earning their loyalty. It doesn't even appear he knows how to earn such a thing. He refuses, even when knowing his family is on the line, to tell his crew what he's really after, confiding only in King Harold, the one man whose loyalty Rocks tried and failed to win. I want you to hear this line for a second and really think about it. Rocks says to Harold, "Whoever's side fortune is on, Harold, it doesn't appear to be mine." I think Rocks can feel the fracture spreading throughout his crew, and he feels very powerless to stop it. He needs his crew united in the face of their ultimate test, but knows just how divided they really are in this moment. I don't think he has the ability within himself the ability to lead, to motivate, to inspire, to bring together that he needs to bring this crew back together, united for this last effort. So what happens on God Valley? Well, to be fair, your guess is as good as mine. We obviously won't know until we see it, but I do believe there is more to the following line than initially meets the eye. As I read earlier, Rox is shown saying to Harold, "As long as my wife and kid escape, I don't care about the rest." To me, this line is ominous, and it's a stark contrast to the attitudes of captains we love, such as Luffy, Roger, and Whitebeard. Luffy, Roger, and Whitebeard are not going to say something about how only their goals matter and everything else is going to get thrown away. In fact, Whitebeard had an entire arc about this where Squard confronts him, thinking that Whitebeard is throwing away the Allied commanders, the Allied captains, just to get Ace back. And what does Whitebeard do? He embraces Squard and proves him wrong through his actions at Marineford. So it's a very uncharacteristic line from the captains that we've come to love, but I think it's illuminating of what we might see happen. If I had to guess, I believe that Rox is going to quickly find himself without the full support of his crew, and facing the combined might of Roger and Garp, he'll do some mental math. And when he realizes that not everyone is going to leave God Valley a winner, he's going to do the one thing he can to save his family. He's going to make sure that the ones who leave as winners are him and his family. And he'll sacrifice someone else if that means he gets off that island or his family gets off that island. I believe he will make an attempt to sacrifice either Shacky or members of his own crew or both. Whatever rift there is between Rox and Whitebeard is going to explode as Whitebeard's desire for a family is torn apart by a captain willing to throw away crewmates and allies. I believe Whitebeard is going to turn on Rox to save the remaining members of the crew. In the end, I believe that characters such as Gonzui, Captain John, Gilbastar, and perhaps even more Rox pirates are going to die at God Valley, which might end up explaining how Gecko Moria later comes to possess their corpses. Rox's desire to save his family, I do believe, is going to be fulfilled by Whitebeard, who is going to escape with the surviving members of the Rox pirates. I think Shacky and Gloriosa may escape with the Roger pirates, who are allowed to escape without pursuit by Garp, in a move that mirrors Smoker's decision to let the Straw Hats go in Alabasta. As an aside, I think it's entirely possible that the events of God Valley are what finally matures Roger into the man we've come to know over the last 25 years. So much of God Valley seems to focus on love and family, so it may be that Oda is intentionally showing us how the events of God Valley shape and transform Roger from immature boy into the legend that we know today. Now, don't get hung up on the fact that Roger's in his 30s at this point. He still acts like a boy. I'm working on a separate video on this subject and would love to know if that's something anybody wants to see. As a teaser, I want to discuss the possibility that Roger's decision to leave Ace in Garp's hands was the result of seeing Garp and Dragon together at God Valley. If that's a discussion you want, please leave a comment below. And if you're not into it, tell me that too. Tell me what kind of content you do want to see, and it might inspire a future video. I'm looking for a lot of ideas right now. Hit the buttons if you want. Leave them alone if you're not feeling it. My last video is sitting at 7 views as of the recording of this video. So 10 views for this one is a fair goal. I'm truly honored just to be able to make these videos and engage with fellow fans. I'm currently aiming to upload about twice a week or so until I run out of ideas. So again, leave any comments below, any feedback, any ideas, anything that you'd like to see. I'd love to get it on the schedule if it's something that I can do. Until next time, hope y'all are having a great day and take care.